All right, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, so today we're looking at hymn 24.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, it really dives into this idea of death, which, we all have to face eventually, right?
It's a universal experience for sure.
But what I found so fascinating about this hymn is how it approaches the possibility of transcending death.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Through, spiritual wisdom and detachment.
How so?
Well, for one thing, the hymn doesn't beat around the bush,
Right.
It just comes right out and says, death, the great transgressor, will eventually come.
Wow, straight to the point.
What are your thoughts on that opening?
It's fascinating how that directness sets the tone right away,
Yeah.
It acknowledges this universal human experience.
The inevitability of death.
Exactly. And then it prompts us to consider
Okay.
how we might relate to it differently.
I like that.
It's
Yeah.
like, how can we approach death in a way that doesn't just fill us with fear?
Yes. And that's where I found the concept of the path of reconciliation so intriguing.
Oh, tell me about that.
It's called Samarisen Margam in verse 4.
Okay.
And the hymn says that only those who follow the path of reconciliation, the righteous path, can transcend it.
What do you make of that?
Well, to me, it suggests that it's not about literally avoiding death,
Right.
but rather about spiritual growth
Interesting.
and aligning ourselves with a greater truth.
So it's about, internal transformation rather than
Yeah, exactly.
like physical immortality or something?
It's about shifting our perspective and understanding so that we're no longer
Okay.
bound by the fear and limitations we typically associate with death.
I bet our listeners thinking,
Yeah.
okay, how can I possibly achieve this kind of transcendence?
Right. And here's where the hymn gets even deeper.
I'm ready.
There's this line that really stood out to me.
What is it?
Those who understand the truth see that death is not the end. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think it emphasizes the importance of seeking satyama,
Which means?
truth, but a truth that goes beyond.
Okay.
Just surface level appearances. Death
yeah.
is presented as a transition.
Not an absolute end.
Right, and this idea actually echoes in many different
No, yeah.
spiritual and philosophical traditions.
So it's like
Yeah.
recognizing a deeper reality beyond what we perceive with our senses.
Exactly. There's more to the story than just
Right.
this physical existence.
And the hymn seems to suggest
That's
that
there?
detaching from worldly attachments is key to accessing that deeper truth.
I see. So how does that connect to this
Yeah.
idea of transcendence?
Well, verse 7 says, grace removes all attachments and leads us to the truth.
Interesting.
And when I read that, I started thinking about all the things we cling to.
Right.
Our possessions, our relationships, our identities even.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah, and how do these attachments actually keep us from experiencing true liberation?
Yeah.
And not just from death, but maybe even from the anxieties and suffering of life itself.
Those are some big questions.
Definitely.
And the hymn doesn't hold back. It asks us directly.
Oh, how so?
Should one cling to many attachments? Or should one let go and reach true liberation? So what stands out to you in that question? What attachments might you be clinging to?
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
For sure.
We'll be right back after the break.
And we'll dive even deeper into this idea of grace and detachment. What's really interesting about how the hymn uses the word grace?
Oh, what's that?
It suggests there's this force beyond our individual control,
Right.
that can help us on this path.
Is this attachment and liberation?
It's almost like a
Yeah.
cosmic helping hand.
Right. But it also implies that
What does it imply?
we have to be open to receiving it.
I see, but how do we even
Hey.
cultivate this sense of grace in our lives?
Well, if we look at various spiritual traditions,
Practices like meditation, mindfulness,
Right.
and acts of service are often emphasized as ways to loosen
loosen,
the grip of our attachments.
because those practices help us
They can help us.
shift our focus away from our own ego and desires.
Yes, they can help us develop a sense of perspective. Meditation, for example,
Okay.
can help us observe our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them.
It's about creating space for
Exactly.
something deeper to emerge.
It's like detaching from that constant chatter
Oh, the chatter of
of minds. Yeah,
almost like stepping back
Yes,
and
yeah.
becoming an observer of our own thoughts and feelings,
precisely. And then you have mindfulness.
which helps us.
Appreciate the present moment
Okay.
rather than dwelling on the past or worrying
On
about.
the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of which are often rooted in attachment.
You know, it's funny you mentioned mindfulness
Why is that?
because I immediately thought about how often I catch myself replaying past events
Right.
or worrying about things that
Yeah.
haven't even happened yet.
It's a common experience, believe me.
Really?
Our minds are wired to dwell on the past,
Yeah.
anticipate the future.
But mindfulness helps us.
It helps us break free from that cycle
Okay.
and experience life more fully.
Without clinging to how things were or how we want them to be.
Exactly.
What about acts of service? How do those tie into
Oh, that's a good one.
detaching from our ego and cultivating grace?
Well, when we focus on helping others, we shift our attention away from our own
Oh,
needs and desires.
it's a way of practicing compassion
Yes,
and recognizing our interconnectedness
Right.
with all beings.
it's about expanding our circle of concern.
Recognizing that our well-being is tied to the well-being of others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's through these practices, through this ongoing effort to cultivate grace,
Okay.
that we can start to loosen the grip of our attachments, move closer to that deeper truth the hymn speaks of.
But this all sounds like a lot of work.
I know, right?
It's one thing to intellectually understand,
Right.
the importance of detachment and grace, but how do we actually put it into practice in our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question.
What advice would you give to our listener who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by all of this?
It's true, it's not always easy,
Right.
but remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
And the hymn itself emphasizes that grace plays a vital role.
In this process.
Yeah, it's not something we have to achieve entirely on our own.
So it's like we're partnering with a force that's bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. It's a collaborative process.
But it does require effort on our part,
It does. It's about making conscious choices.
day by day.
Yeah, to align ourselves with those principles of righteousness, wisdom, and compassion.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about the line.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
Those who follow the path of reconciliation, the righteous path, can transcend it. It's like the hymn is saying that the way we live our lives has a direct impact on our experience of death.
I agree. It's not just about intellectual understanding,
Right.
but about embodying those principles in our actions.
In our relationships, in our daily lives.
Exactly. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, I mean, we're all busy.
Right.
You have responsibilities.
Exactly.
How do we find the time and energy for spiritual growth?
Amidst the chaos of everyday life.
Well, it's about making small, consistent choices.
Like,
It could be starting a daily meditation practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes,
okay.
or making a conscious effort to be more present in our interactions.
With others.
Yes, or
Yeah.
volunteering our time to a cause we care about.
So it's about integrating these practices
Right.
into our daily routines.
Exactly, finding ways to weave them into the fabric of our lives.
What I find so fascinating about Hymn 24
Oh, what's that?
is that it doesn't offer any concrete answers about
About,
what happens after death.
it leaves that open to interpretation.
Right. It invites us to contemplate the mystery of death without imposing a rigid dogma.
I think that's what I love about it. It
Yeah.
encourages us to grapple with the unknown and form our own understanding.
It's like the hymn is saying, hey, here are some principles to guide you, but the ultimate journey is yours to take.
Precisely. And I think that resonates deeply with
Yeah.
the human experience. You know,
Yeah.
we all face death,
Right.
but the meaning we make of it, the way we approach it, is deeply personal.
So how do we reconcile this idea of a righteous path of spiritual growth and detachment
Okay,
with the reality that we're all going to die someday?
that's a good question.
How does this understanding change our experience of life,
Right.
knowing that death is inevitable?
That's the question the hymn challenges us to explore, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it suggests that
What does it suggest?
by embracing the impermanence of life, by letting go of our attachments to the things of this world, we can actually experience a deeper sense of
Deeper senses of
freedom and purpose.
a freedom that comes from accepting what is,
Yes.
rather than resisting it.
Exactly. And I think that acceptance is key to
Okay.
transcending the fear of death.
Okay.
When we resist death, when we try to deny its reality, it becomes this looming threat that casts a shadow over our lives.
But when we accept it,
When we accept it as a natural part of the cycle of existence,
right,
we can start to live more fully.
in the present moment.
Exactly.
You know, as you're talking, I keep coming back to that line.
Which one?
Those who understand the truth see that death is not the end.
Powerful words.
If death isn't the end, then what does that mean for how we live our lives today?
That's a profound question.
Yeah.
And one that each of us must answer for ourselves.
Right.
But I think the hymn offers us some clues.
Like what?
It suggests that the way we live our lives, the choices we make, the actions we take,
Right.
have ripple effects that extend far beyond our individual lifespans.
So it's about recognizing that our lives have meaning and purpose,
Yes,
even in the face of our own mortality.
absolutely. And
Well-
by embracing that purpose,
Okay.
by living in a way that reflects our deepest values, we can create a legacy that transcends the boundaries of our physical existence.
This idea of a legacy really resonates with me.
In what way?
It's like, even though our physical bodies may cease to exist, the impact of our actions,
Right.
the love we've shared,
Yeah.
the kindness we've extended.
It continues to ripple outwards,
Yeah.
influencing the world long after we're gone.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we're all interconnected.
And that our lives have a profound impact on the world around us.
This has been a truly thought-provoking conversation.
It really has.
We've explored the inevitability of death, the possibility of transcendence,
Yeah.
and the importance of living a life that reflects our deepest values.
Absolutely.
But, there's one question that keeps coming back to me.
Oh, what's that?
The hymn talks about grace as this force that can help us detach from worldly attachments and achieve liberation.
Right.
But I'm wondering, how do we actually access this grace? Is it something we can cultivate through practice?
Okay.
Or is it a gift that's bestowed upon us?
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
And I think it lies at the heart of many spiritual traditions.
And it's something we'll explore further as we delve deeper into Hymn 24. I was just thinking about something you said earlier.
Oh, yeah? What was that?
About how the hymn encourages us to, contemplate the mystery of death without offering any concrete answers.
Right. It really leaves it up to us
To grapple with those big questions.
and find our own meaning.
Exactly.
And I think that open-endedness
Yeah.
is part of what makes Hymn 24 so compelling.
It doesn't shy away from the mystery, the unknown.
It invites us to explore different perspectives,
Right.
to engage in our own personal search for truth.
As I've been reflecting on all of this, I keep coming back to that central question.
Which is,
If death isn't the end,
okay,
then what does that mean for how I live my life today?
that's the question that continues to resonate with me as well.
That's a big one, for sure.
And I think the hymn offers us some guidance.
Even without providing definitive answers.
Exactly, it reminds us that death is inevitable,
Right.
but our understanding and experience of it can be transformed.
Transformed through
Spiritual practice, through seeking wisdom,
and cultivating compassion
yes, and through letting go of those attachments that bind us.
to the material world.
Precisely, it's about recognizing that true liberation comes from aligning ourselves with something greater,
Something that transcends.
boundaries of our individual lives,
So it's about shifting our focus
Yeah.
from the temporary to the eternal.
from the material to the spiritual.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that our true nature is not bound by the limitations of our physical bodies.
Or our earthly possessions.
It's about connecting with that spark of divinity that resides within each of us.
And for me, the hymn's emphasis on grace is really comforting.
I agree.
It suggests that we're not alone on this journey
Right. There's a force beyond our comprehension.
that can guide and support us.
Yes, and I think that recognition of grace is essential.
Why is that?
It reminds us that we don't have to figure everything out on our own,
We can surrender to something.
larger than ourselves,
Trust in the unfolding of life.
and allow ourselves to be guided by a wisdom that transcends our limited understanding,
So it's about letting go of control,
and trusting in something bigger than ourselves,
surrendering to the mystery,
embracing the unknown,
and allowing ourselves to be guided by.
the wisdom of the universe.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Hymn 24, I'm struck by how much this ancient text still speaks to us today.
It really does.
It offers a timeless message.
Oh, it
The importance of spiritual growth
detachment,
and the search for truth. It's a message that's more relevant than ever,
especially in our modern world,
where we're constantly bombarded with distractions and temptation.
that pull us away from our true nature.
So as we go back to our busy lives,
What's one key takeaway from Hymn 24 that you hope our listeners will carry with them?
I would say it's this. Death is not the end. It's a transition, a doorway to something greater.
Okay.
And the way we live our lives, the choices we make, the love we share, All of it has a profound impact on our experience of that transition. Live with intention, seek truth,
Cultivate compassion.
and embrace the mystery of existence with both humility and courage.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive into Hymn 24 has sparked your own curiosity
And inspired you to contemplate these profound questions.
about life, death, and the possibility of transcendence.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration.
We'll see you next time.